Good afternoon, friends. Today I'll be talking of contemporary management thinkers. In my previous discussion, I talked about classical and new classical thoughts. We are talking about evolution of management thoughts. When I'm talking of evolution of management thoughts, what we mean by evolution of management thoughts that over a period of time, different management experts, different management thinkers have given different viewpoint regarding management, regarding how to make management effective and how to achieve the results in the organization, how to achieve our goals most optimally. Over a period of time, different experts have given different viewpoint. We talked about classical theorists, we talked about neoclassical theorists. In today's lecture, I'll be focusing on contemporary management thinkers. When you talk of contemporary management thinkers, there is no integrated approach. In the sense, there are various experts who have given different viewpoints about the management, how they can achieve the goals optimally. So it consists of several stream of thoughts pointed by several thinkers. In this classroom, in this lecture, I'll be focusing on Peter Drucker, Porter, Sens, and if the time will permit, Prahlad and Michael Hammer. Because time is short, I'm directly coming to the Peter Drucker's theory. See, Peter Drucker is considered the father of modern contemporary management. He born in Vienna in 1909. He was invited by General Motors to give his viewpoint and make research about the organization, and he has written various books on management. So his writings, teachings and consultancy are still considered pioneer work in the field of management. His main contributions, I am directly focusing on his main contributions. He talked about nature and role of management. He said management is dynamic, life-giving element in every business. When you say dynamic, it means since the organization deals with the environment and environment is very changing, ever fast changing. So management should also be dynamic, manager should also be dynamic, and it should work as a blood, the way the blood functions in the human organization, human body. Similarly, the management or the managers should work as a blood in the organization. It could makes the organization lively, and it should be prepared organization for whatever the changes that takes place in the environment. Peter says that developing countries are not underdeveloped, they are undermanaged. What it means is that this underdevelopment is not because of lack of resources or lack of the natural resources and the human resources. But since these countries are not properly managed, they are undermanaged. Because of that, they are underdeveloped. You look the example of any developed country, Peter argues that these countries are properly managed and they are able to harness their natural resources and human resources effectively. That's why they have become developed. So essence of management is not knowing, but doing. So this is about, he talked about nature and role of management. Similarly, he said there are three important jobs of a manager. One is about the economic performance, that the job of the manager is to produce economic results. I'm not saying this is the only job of the manager, but it is one of the important job of the manager that it must produce economic results. Economic results in terms of market share, economic terms in terms of the profits, the rewards, right? So the ultimate goal of especially the economic organization is to earn profit, earning profit, not by any negative means, but by producing, by giving the good quality service, by giving the good quality product and thereby earning profit. He said its job is to making work productive and work achieving. Means the work should be productive in the sense the productivity of the workers who are there at the workplace. They should be productive, and it should, each worker should focus on the achievement. That is, the individual should given the task and they should focus on the achievement. And when I'm talking of achievement, we don't mean, Peter Drucker never argues that you treat, like the classical theories, you treat the people as a cog in the machine. By focusing on the individuals, by respecting the individual's interest, likings and dislikings, by giving them proper recognitions, you make the workers achievers. That is, they must focus on the achievement of the task that is in hand. Similarly, another important job of the manager which Drucker focus is managing social impacts and social responsibilities. Means not only the concern for the quantities means in terms of the economic rewards which they achieve, in terms of the production, the quantitative production, but also the quality of life of the individuals who are working in the is important for a manager. So these are the three broad areas which Drucker focus about these are the three important roles which a manager has to perform at workplace. Business objectives and social responsibility. Drucker argues that profit is important for the survival and growth of the business, but it is not necessarily the only goal of the organization. Means apart from the profit, apart from the market share, apart from economic rewards, managers should also be important for the people and the environment under which it operates. That is, management must take into account the environmental factors. It must give due respect and due regard to the environment, and it must focus on the activities of the people. Next is entrepreneurial functions. Drucker focused on two important aspects. One is marketing and other is innovations. That is, each manager or management should act as an entrepreneur. The way the entrepreneur is the one who is entrepreneur. We say entrepreneur is the one who conceives the idea and translate this idea into practicality. Similarly, the management should also always think of innovate new ideas, and not only it should innovate new ideas, but it should translate these new ideas into reality. And focus should be on the marketing, focus should be on innovation. When I say marketing, marketing means selling the product and services. Selling, not marketing, not in its traditional sense, but in its modern sense. That is, you understand the needs and requirements of the people and providing the goods and services as per the needs and requirements of your customers or your target group. Then the very important concept which Drucker focuses is management by objective. Friends, sometime a separate question is being asked on management by objective itself. We'll also discuss it at some other point of time, but today also I am elaborating little bit of this point. What is management by objective? I would say the simple meaning of management objective is workers and the management, the people who are working in the organization, commonly decides about the goal. It is not the management which imposes goals and objectives and the targets for the people who are working in the organization. It is the people who are working. When I'm saying people in the working means the workers as well as the management jointly sits, jointly creates goal for themselves, and not only they creates goals for themselves, but also see to it that these goals are being achieved. That is, a continuous monitoring is being done, not by the bosses, not by the management, but even by the individuals who have set the goals, right? So management by objective, the basic concept of the management by objective is that the organization, the people who are working in the organization, they should jointly determine their goals and see to it that these goals are being achieved. So management is not just a creator of the economy. It is not that you are the part of the economy, but you are the creator as well. Means you create something new. To manage a business means to manage by objectives. That is, you determine your objective, and on the basis of that, you decide about the each individual should be given specific goal, which is measurable, which is quantifiable, and keep a track of it, right? Not that the bosses will keep track, the individuals themselves will keep a track, as well as the management will keep track on it. And the objective should be achievable. Not only it should be quantifiable, but the each individual should given an objective which is achievable also. Objective helps to direct the vision and efforts of all managers towards a common goal. Means although each manager has its own goal, but despite own goal, each of them is focusing on the common goal. So the goal is common. Management by objective is a personal management technique where managers and employees work together to set, record, and monitor goals for a specific period of time. As I said just now earlier, that it is not only setting the goals, recorded means your whatever you are doing, that is being recorded, and goals are being monitored. So MBO is supervised and managed actively so that all individual goals can be coordinated to work towards the overall organization goals. I hope you are getting this point. That is not only the individual goals, but you set the goals in a manner and you record and monitor the goals in a manner so that it is in congruence with the overall organization goals. So one can think of an individual personal goal as one piece of a puzzle that must fit together with all other pieces to form the complete puzzle, and the complete puzzle is your organization goals, right? So goals are set down in writing annually, and when I'm saying annually, it is not necessarily annually, but for a reasonable period of time, for a clear time frame should be there. One of the important aspects of the management objective is that there should be a clear time frame for which these goals are set. So they are set. I'm here I've written annually and are continually monitored by managers to check progress. Rewards are based upon goal achievement. So now after talking, this is about the concept of management by objective, right? So now after talking of the concept of management by objective, let me very briefly talk about the advantages and disadvantages of MBO. As you can see here, it provides a means to identify and plan for the achievement of goals. The basic idea of management by objective is commonly setting, I would say, the quantifiable goals and monitoring it. So the goals are being identified which are achievable. Planning means for determining the goal, you will make the planning. So planning will permit proactive behavior and a disciplined approach to goal of achievement. It also allows one person to prepare for contingencies and roadblocks that may hinder the plan, right? So if supposing there is some problem, some contingency that comes in the achievement of that goal, you will prepare a contingency plans and you will also plan in advance that if there is any roadblock, how you will overcome that roadblock. The third important advantage of MBO is organizations can gain more efficiency, save resources if goals are properly set, managed and achieved. See, it's self-explanatory that if you have clear goal and these goals are being monitored properly, so obviously the efficiency of the organization will go up. How the efficiency will improve? Because individuals are themselves involved in setting the goals. When you're yourself involved in setting the goals, commitment of the people for achieving the goals will increase. That will lead to increase in efficiency. When efficiency improves, obviously the resources will be saved, right? So these are the broadly advantages of MBO. The list is not exhaustive. I've given you the broad idea, but this is the benefit which you can earn if you manage through management by objective. Disadvantages, when I say the disadvantages, they're not disadvantaged exactly. But if management by objective is not being implemented in its true sense, then these can be the limitations, these can be the problems that may come in implementing the management objective. Setting goals require concentrated efforts. Obviously, when you are setting the goals in advance, when you are planning in advance, it requires more lot of efforts, which requires time, which requires energy, right? The other weaknesses can be there is often a focus on mere goal setting rather than the developing a plan that can be implemented. Sometimes, if the management by objective is not being done properly, the goal setting itself becomes a goal only. Means rather than focusing on the implementation part, sometimes managers or the individuals focuses on the goal setting. That is one of the weakness of management objective. And the other limitations can be the organization may fail to monitor changes taking place in the environment, which can make the goal and strategy to achieve them redundant. See, since in the management way objective, the goals are being set in advance. Each individual has sets his own goal, which is in congruence with the organization goal. But if in an organization changes are taking place at a very fast rate, sometimes, I'm saying only sometimes, the management or the individuals are not able to incorporate those changes. So because of that, the organization goes or the purpose of the organization will not be achievable or results will be not as good as the management perceives. So these are the few limitations of management by objective. I mean, this is the basic concept of management by objective. So the other aspect which Drucker focuses is on federal decentralization. Friends, by and large, you have heard that the organizations are being, divided on the basis of functional organization. Functional organization means that dividing the organization on the basis of functions. Marketing, purchase, personal department, and so on, so finance department, and so on and so forth. So Drucker is the one who suggested federal structure. Federal structure means, federal organization means activities are organized into autonomous product division, each with its own responsibility, product and market. That is, suppose a company is producing 3 different products. So in the traditional functional organization, the marketing work is being done for all the 3 products by the one marketing department. Finance is being done, taken care of by the finance department of all the 3 products. In the Drucker's viewpoint, in the federal organization should be divided on the basis of product divisions, right? Each product out of the 3 products which you are producing, each product should be independent in itself and it should have its own responsibility for all the functions that is being performed by that for that product. So that is called federal organization. So Drucker focused on, or Drucker suggested that in organization there should be federal decentralization instead of functional organization. As far as the organizational structure is concerned, Drucker suggested that there should not be very long hierarchy. Sometimes you make an organization structure in a manner so that the hierarchy is very long. And it said it puts certain hindrances in the quick decision making. It puts certain hindrances in the communication. It creates a communication gap. So Drucker suggested that there should be least authority levels. It facilitates the testing and training of the future managers, right? So the organization structure should be such where the levels of hierarchy or the different hierarchical level should be minimized and future managers should be created. Because if the level of hierarchy will be low, I'm not doing a very small part of the job, but I'm directly connected with my boss, I'm directly connected with my subordinate, and then I will able to develop my skills, enhancement with the skills, which will able to create future managers for the organization. As far as the decision making is concerned, he said there are 2 types of decisions that are being taken place in the organization. One is called tactical decision, other is called strategic decisions. So strategic decision means when you decide on the base of environment, what your competitors are doing, what your uh, competitors are doing, and what the environment is, keeping the environmental constraints in mind, you take the decision. Tactical decisions means where you take the decisions on the base of your internal environment, where more focus on the internal environment, right? So there are four criteria for choosing the best solution. I mean, what is the decision-making process? I mean, decision-making process involved defining the problem, right? After defining the problem, you analyze the problem, and you analyze that what are the different options which are available for achieving that result, for solving that problem, for for achieving that goal. And out of those different steps, different alternatives which are available to you, you select the best one, right? So this is basically decision making process. For this decision making process, there are different criteria on the base of which you select that out of these different options which are given to you, which one is the best. You analyze the different options which you have on the base of risk, that how much risk is involved in each of these different alternatives which you have. Economy means in terms of the cost, in terms of the monetary cost, in terms of the resources that is being required. Efforts means resources of the human being, how much effort is required. Training and limitations of resources means what are the resources which you have, how much training will it require. So on the basis of your own resources, means if there is any resource which is in limited supply, which is limited, you will not able to select that alternate which may be the best alternate, but because of the resource constraint, you will not able to take that decision. So whenever you choose out of the different options which you have for achieving a goal, that what are your limitations of your resources, how much efforts is required, how much money and human efforts will be required, and what is the risk involved, right? Supposing, say for example, when you are making an investment, you have various options while making the investment. You have option of investing in the bank FD, you have you have option of investing in the corporate debt, corporate bonds, you have option of investing in the real estate, you have option of investing in the stock market, all these different options. But if you invest in the stock market, the returns are very high, but so is the risk. So a person who is risk averse may not be like to invest in the stock market because of the risk involved. So these are the different factors on the base of which I've talked about risk. I've talked about economy of efforts, training and limitation resources. He said these are the four bases on the base of you select that which is the best option for your decision making. Drucker also focused on management development. Means when I talk of the management development of not only one individual or few individuals, development of the entire group, and it should be dynamic. Means keeping in mind the future requirements of the organization, future needs of the organization, the management development should take place. As all of us are aware that these technological changes are very fast. This COVID-19 has taught us how to use that technology. Many of the people who were not using the technology, who were not adaptive as per for the new technological things, right? As you are seeing even today. Earlier we used to have a physical classes one-to-one. Now we are having online classes, and these online classes, or when you are saying in the virtual mode, what you are doing? We are using technology. So we have to learn the technology. The management must update its people, and it should be futuristic. Means think about the future and train people, develop your organization, keeping in mind the future requirements of the future. So this point I have already just referred. Futurity means it must take into account the future requirements. Future requirements means, as we know, that technology is changing fast. Things are changing fast. Consumers' preferences are changing fast. So keeping in mind the future, the management must prepare itself. There should be mentoring. He was the one who gave this concept. Mentoring means you mentor people, career planning, executive development. People will not stay long with you unless people have their own career planning, so that they have a chance to grow in the organization. Executive development, focus on the development of the people. Vision, customer orientation, knowledge worker. Each worker should be a knowledge worker, means they should learn new things every day. So these are the things which Drucker focused. And lastly, that in the according to Drucker's viewpoint, these are the 8 areas in which objectives should be set and performance will be evaluated. Right? Drucker said that objective should be set and the performance of the individuals who are working in the organization should be evaluated on the basis of these criteria. Market standing, right? When I'm saying objectives, objective of the organizations we are talking of. Market standing, where the organization, where the market standing is, means not only in terms of market share, but in terms of your product positioning it yourself. That you position your product your service in a manner so that you have a market standing. People, you develop the what you call brand image of your product, of your service. Innovations, right? So I mean, organization, individuals should always be involved in innovations, developing new things, developing new technology, developing new product, so that customer satisfaction can take place. Productivity, physical and financial resources, profitability, managers' performance and development, workers' performance and attitudes, and public responsibility. So friends, these are the 8 areas where the objectives of the organization should be set and performance of the evaluated. So this is basically the Drucker's theory of management. Now friends, after talking of Drucker, another contemporary management thinker is Michael Porter, right? So Porter was born in 1947. Basically, his main contribution to the field of management is his theory of 5-force analysis and value chain analysis. When I'm talking of 5-force analysis, this 5-force analysis, Drucker talks about that in a competitive environment, these are the 5 forces which determine the degree of competitions in the organization. And these factors will determine that how you position your product, how you position your services, and how you can achieve the desired goals, keeping in mind these different factors, right? So I'll be talking of each of these which you are seeing, these 5 forces, one by one in detail. Again, I'm saying that when I'm saying 5-force analysis, he said these are the 5 forces, 5 factors, I would say broadly, which determines the level of competition in the market, which determines your competitive edge in the market, and on the base of this, you will able to position yourself. Let me talk these 5 points, then I'll come back again. Number 1 is threat of entry, right? There are 6 sources of barriers to entry. Economies of scale, restrictive entry by large scale or to accept a cost disadvantage. See, like say for example, the immediate example which is coming in my mind is telecommunication. At present, there are 3 broad players in the market, right? One is Airtel, the other is Reliance Jio, and third one is Vodafone Idea, right? They are operating at such a large scale that the players who are existing players, they are getting the benefit of economies of scale because they are operating at a very large scale, right? And if new entrant will come, it will have to spend a very huge cost. So probably a smaller player will not able to compete because of economies of scale with the existing players, right? So what it lead to, if you're operating at a large economies of scale, you're getting the benefit of large economies of scale, right? So it will restrict the entry of the new players. I hope you're getting my point. The idea is that if the economies of scale benefit you are already getting, it will restrict the entry of new players. And if the entry of new players is being restricted, obviously you will have a competitive advantage you will be in a position to earn more and more profit by increasing your sales, because the fixed cost you have already incurred, and um, only cost involved is your variable cost. And by increasing your sales, by increasing your cost, like if I take telecommunication example, by increasing your customers directly, you are able to increase your profits of the organization. Product differentiation. Product differentiation means if your product is different from that of your competitors, right, you will able to create customers loyalty. So whether a company is in a position like say for example, if you're dealing in a say general, I will talk of wheat, right? So wheat is more or less alike, although say wheat produced in one form, wheat produced in another form, unless it is being differentiated by a particular brand, right? There is no difference in one wheat or the other wheat, only little bit difference of the wheat. So what is the possibility that you will able to differentiate your product? If you are able to differentiate your product, obviously your entry of the other competitors will be difficult. Capital requirement. Any sector, say example, power sector. Power sector requires huge financial resources that will determine the level of competition. Cost disadvantages. The existing firms may have cost advantage. We say early entrants, the people who starts early, they have a cost advantage because they have purchased the land in some in 30 years, 20 years, 40 years back, right? At that point of time, the land was very cheap. They have installed the machinery at that point of time, and still the life of the machine is quite long. So the other players who will enter into the market now, they will have a cost disadvantage. And the people who are already operating, they will have a cost advantage. Access to distribution channels, right? To what extent you have access to the wholesalers, retailers, etc. Government policy, foreclose entry through licensing. If there is a licensing system, although most of the after economic liberalization, we are, we are dispensed off with the licensing system. But still, for some sectors, there is licensing. Like say, for example, again telecommunication, right? You have to buy the spectrum, and when you buy the spectrum, only those people who have the spectrum, they will able to operate. So government policy will determine the level of competition. The other important factor is bargaining power of the customers. Say bargaining power of customers means that whether the bargaining power is large or of the customers, it depends on various factors. There are large volume buyers and industry has heavy fixed cost. If the customers are buying in very large quantity, right? There are large volume buyers and industry has heavy cost. If you have already operating at a cost which is very heavy in terms of fixed cost, so if that customer doesn't buy from you, who is a very large customer, obviously you will be a great loser. So then in that case, the seller's bargaining power will be less and the customer's bargaining power will be more. Means you will be in a difficult situation as far as the seller is concerned. Product is standard or undifferentiable, right? You are not able to differentiate your product. It operates on a low profit margin. When the industry's product is not important to the quality of buyer's product. Industry means where you are selling it. If it is, the quality of that product is not that much important for the buyer, then the level of bargaining power of the seller will be low, and then the bargaining power of the buyer will be high. Similarly, the third important factor that determine the level of competition in the market is the bargaining power of supplier. Means suppliers group is powerful in the following circumstances. The group consists of a few firms and is more concentrated than the industry itself too. Like supposing in a oligopoly firm where there are few firms, right? And when there are few firms, these firms who are early entrants, there are only 2-3 players. Like say for example in the tire industry, then the bargaining power of the suppliers will be more, right? The product is unique or differentiated. If you are selling a product which is unique, which is differentiated from the others, your bargaining power will be more. It sells product having no substitutes. it poses a threat of forward integration, right? So the industry to which the group supplies is not an important customer of the suppliers group. So this is bargaining power of suppliers. Fourth point is substitute product. I mean, if the substitute products are available in the market, the product which you are selling, obviously your bargaining power will be less. Your means sellers. If the substitute products are not available, then your bargaining power will be high. Means your level of competition will be low. So substitutability of the product of an industry also determines the degree of competition in that industry. Factor determining how strong is the competitive pressure. It depends on substitute product is readily available and attractively priced. Substitute products as being better in terms of quality and performance, cost of end product to switch to substitutes, right? So these are the important factors which determines the level of competition in the market. And lastly, rivalry between existing firms. Strategies should seek answer of the following. Who are your major competitors and their market share? What are the main strengths and weaknesses of the competitors? How are their product positions in terms of market segment? What are the pricing policies, distribution channels, and promotion level, and image of each competitor's products, right? So these factors will determine the level of competitions in the market. So Porter's model of competitive highlights the fact that competition is more than just rivalry with the existing competitors. It provides a framework to thinking how value is created and divided among existing and potential participants in the industry. This is helpful in designing an effective competitive strategy. Right competitive positioning on the basis of 5 forces will help to improve the performance. Friends, these 5 factors, right, determine the level of competition in the market. And on the basis of these 5 factors, you will determine your strategies. You will determine that how your product and your service is positioned in the market, what is your bargaining power, how you can fix your pricing policies, how you can fix your how you can determine your different policies, right? So he talked about competitive strategies. Means there are 3 things which are important for your competitive strategies. Cost leadership strategies. I'm just finishing within 2-3 minutes, friends. So you bear with me. Cost leadership strategies. The cost leadership strategies means that for determining your competitive strategies, you should focus on cost. That is, if you are able to minimize your cost, obviously you will able to have an edge over your competitors. So the cost of production is reduced to the minimum level, increase market share and drive out competition. If your cost is low, obviously you will able to sell at a lower price. And if you are able to sell at a lower price, you will able to drive out competition. It defends the firm against powerful buyers and suppliers. Other strategy is differential strategy. Differential strategy means you differentiate your product and services from that of your competitors. How you can do it? By making unique designs, creating a brand image. You create a brand image so that just by the people buy your product by naming it, by naming your brand, that it enjoys such brand loyalty that whenever customer go to the market, they buy their product on the basis of the brand, right? Customer service, you provide better services, after sales services, and all the services which the customers require, customer service and dealer network. There should be a wide dealer network so that you are able to differentiate with that. Like say, for example, Maruti. Many of the people in India buy Maruti car because not only it has a good brand image, but it has a large, very large dealer network. Because they know it. If you are in any remote part of India, if you're stuck, if there is any fault that comes in your car, I mean, you will easily get a service center in every small town of this country, right? And thirdly, focus strategy. Focuses on particular group, segment of the product line or geographical market. It depends on your company's objective, your company's strategy. So these are the three cost leadership strategies. And lastly, the Porter has focused on value chain analysis. So these are the building blocks, right? So primary activities and supporting activities. Primary activities in terms of inbound logistics, production and operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, right? And services. Similarly, supportive activities are in terms of human resources, technology, strategy, and research and development. So this is value chain. These are called the building blocks. If you build these blocks in the organization, obviously the efficiency of your organization will achieve and management will be able to derive the desired results. So friends, with this, I have discussed two broad theory of contemporary management, right? So we'll continue this discussion in our next lecture. Thank you very much.